Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk About TV, your, I guess, weekly show where I talk about the TV show that's currently on air that I want to talk about. As you know, this is only episode 2 of Talk About TV, and, so I don't have an actual intro, and I mean, come on, the name itself, kind of lazy. It's just Talk About with TV thrown at the end of it, because I couldn't come up with anything better at the time, but we're just having fun with it, okay? I just didn't want I needed a new brand for the TV stuff other than the game stuff, you know what I mean? Keep it separate, different episode list and all of that. But different playlists and all of that stuff. Anyways, that's besides the point. We're here to talk about Loki season 2 episode 2. And if you are new to Talk About TV, I essentially am going to fully spoil the episode and just have like a little review discussion with myself because it's just me. It's always just me. And that's fine. It's a good time. I have fun. And I also need to start saying earlier in my videos, hit the like button. Why not? Hit the like button. See what it does, Because I feel like I do say it eventually in all of my videos, but I always feel like it's too late. And I feel like people aren't hitting the like button because of that. See what happens. Maybe people hit the like button now. Who knows? Who knows? Anyways, we're here to talk about Loki, season 2, episode 2, titled Breaking Brad, which is, of course, a reference to Breaking Bad, the second best show ever made. Of course, the first best show is Better Call Saul. I said it. Better Call Saul. Better show. More consistent show. Overall, a better show than Breaking Bad. Fight me in the comments. Please do. Comment things so that the engagement is higher and the algorithm helps me do stuff like that. Anyways, Breaking Brad. And full spoilers, of course. And also, at the end of the last episode, I know people don't always stick around the whole way through, so I am going to recap a little bit there, what I said then. We are doing scores at the end of these. Well, not the end. We're doing it. I'm going to score each episode, and at the end of the season, I'm going to average that score to get the season's score, on a scale of 1 to 10, because I feel like that's a really cool way to do a review of a season of television. I don't know if that's how everyone else does it or not. I'll be honest. I don't pay enough attention to seasons of television reviews. I'll be honest. But yeah, that's how we're going to do it because it sounds like fun. And last episode got a 10 out of 10. And this episode got an 8 out of 10 for me personally, for reasons I will be getting into as we continue on. First things first, I do want to say that coming off of a 10 out of 10 episode, of course, it's going to be harder to impress me, okay? When episode 1, Ouroboros? Something like that. It's the right word. The pronunciation might have been wrong. It's fine. But coming off of how amazing that episode was, this episode did have an uphill battle. So, an 8 out of 10, very good, okay? There's no doubt about it. But throughout the episode, I was just like, man, this is not getting to the heights of that last episode. There was a moment in time where I thought this episode, Breaking Brad, was a 7 out of 10. But the more I sat with it, the more I was like, you know what? No, this is an 8 out of 10 episode. And the reason for that is, I think that it's really neat that this episode of TV, right? This episode of Loki, season 2, Loki, as we know, is a very big part of this whole multiverse saga that the MCU is doing right now. Loki is a very big piece of that puzzle that they are building. And despite that fact, Loki season 2 so far, still, while obviously there's a lot going on within the MCU itself, it still takes the time to focus in on the characters that it has in the show on its own. Like Owen Wilson gets a lot of good, or not Owen Wilson, he's the actor. Mobius gets a lot of good character moments in this episode. And let me just go ahead and go do a quick brief overview of the plot so that we can get it all out on the table, the things that happened, the things that I can talk about. Although you did watch the episode if you're watching this YouTube video, right? So we can skip around a lot. There's a small time jump at the beginning of this episode where at the end of the last episode, X5 and all of Dox's people were all out to go find Sylvia. Sylvia, that's not right. Sylvie, my mistake. Oh, goodness. They're all sent out to go find her. And then by the time we start episode 2, X5 has apparently gone AWOL, and Loki and Mobius are out to find him. They go to London on the sacred timeline, which is very key point that it's the sacred timeline that X5 has run off to. And and of course, Loki and Mobius confront him and he runs off. And then they do the Tom Cruise run, which is really fun because it's the Tom Cruise run, okay? It's a lot of fun to see people just do the Tom Cruise, even though it's Tom Cruise's thing. So it's funny to see other people do it, is the whole thing. Anyways, and it was also in this moment when they're running throughout London, the streets of London, the alleyways. So I was like, man, it's crazy how much having an actual like on location place to film like just makes the show feel better and more coherent and just like something that's actually happening and not just, blue screen, green screen, or the volume. Because a lot of Marvel lately has just been, CGI, but it's nice to see that Loki season 2 so far has been very like it's been a lot of more practical sets, a lot of real places instead of the blue screen, like, or maybe green screen, like in Ant-Man. I don't know what screen they used. Okay, they might have used the volume poorly, but yeah. And yeah, Loki also catches X5 by using a lot of cool magic tricks, which sounds lame when I say magic tricks. A lot of magic spells and abilities and stuff. He uses shadows at one point, which was really cool to catch him. It's so cool, pretty cool. I like seeing Loki use his magic, and it was cool to see new ways for him to use his magic. And yeah, so basically, they want to interrogate him. They eventually interrogate X5, and there's a lot of other stuff about like his temp pad, but at the end of the day, actually, it does import. It is very important. I was about to say, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter that they tried to figure out what his temp pad was doing, but they didn't figure it out. They just went to go interrogate him. It does come around full circle at the end, though, and you already know what I'm talking about because you saw the episode, of course. But they then go on to interrogate him, and it's Hunter B15. B15. You would think I would remember it by now because I didn't remember it last time. I think it's B15. And Mobius and Loki are interrogating him. And before they go in, Mobius is like, "Don't let him get under your skin," because of course, they're just talking about Loki. And then they go in there, and X5 immediately gets under Loki's skin. He just does what he can. He brings up his mother, and it's just like, dude, come on now. Don't bring up his dead mom. Come on. And then Mobius is like, "Hey, Loki, chill out, man. Take it easy. Take it easy." And then X5 turns his sights onto Mobius, and he gets him all riled up. And Loki's like, "Hey, man, chill out, man." And also, once I must say, this X5 guy, last episode, I called him a big old dork because he walked around like this, and on his gloves it said X5 because he's a big dork. Called it. He's a big dork. He's just such a doofus. He's not like okay. He's not like dumb, but it's just like he's very in it for himself in this episode where he's just trying to live out his own life. I guess that doesn't make him a doofus, whatever. But he's a dork, okay? He's a big actor guy in his new life on the sacred timeline. He became an actor. Come on. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Then they eat pie. And I know what you're thinking. Why am I talking about them eating pie? Because I'll get to it in a second. Because obviously it's not very relevant. But yeah, they talk and they go. We have to come up with a plan to get him to talk. And then Loki basically puts him in a saw trap with the little box thing. It's like all your life you boxed people up by putting them on the secret timeline or whatever. Something like that, okay? I'm not Jigsaw, I'm not John Kramer. I don't know the actual symbolism there. Something about how pruning all the other timelines and or keeping it to the one sacred timeline is like boxing people's lives. I don't know. So that's why I put you in a box. So that's what Jigsaw would say. I never saw those movies. Too scary, too bloody. Not for me. But yeah, that's essentially what's happening. It's really cool though. And for a second there, I did question. Obviously, in the scene prior, they said, "Hey, we got to come up with a plan." So obviously, it's their plan, right? obviously, but there was a moment where that box got smaller, and then it got smaller, and even smaller. And I was like, is he gonna squish him right now? I genuinely thought that he might have gone off the rails there for a moment. It wasn't off the rails. It was all part of the plan. And they get him to tell them where they get X5. I guess he's Brad now. I should call him Brad because he wants to be Brad. He tells them where Sylvie is, and then they go off to McDonald's. And when they get there, the reunion between Loki and Sylvie, it feels tense. Great performances on both of their behalfs. It was really good. They're just the intense stares, the intense stares, and all of the baggage that they're bringing into this confrontation, this reunion moment. Good times. It was really good. And then throughout this whole excavation towards this branched timeline that Sylvia's hanging out in, X5 the entire time is like, hey, Mobius, drop me off. Mobius, we gotta go. Mobius, hey, let's go home. Mobius, send me back. Mobius, we're screwed because turns out the whole plan is that Dox, the aunt from Game of Thrones, that's her character name. Her plan was to send all of those people because remember in the last episode, I think it was B15, Hunter B15. I don't, something like that. Okay. I should look it up. I know. She said, that's an awful lot for hunting just one person or whatever. Turns out they weren't hunting just one person. They were going to all of these timeline branches and they're going to bomb them all and prune them, and get rid of them. And so they do. And that's what they were doing. Then that's why X5 was like, we got to go. We got to go, go, go. We're going to be erased soon because the plan is gonna go. It's gonna happen soon. And then that's when Mobius, Loki, and Sylvie team up to go confront Dox's little train station plan, whatever was going on there, to destroy all these timelines with all these people. They go there to put a stop to it, and it's a really cool moment. It's a really fast-paced action scene, which was it just goes to show how effective they all are because they're all really good. Obviously, it's Loki, mostly Loki and Sylvie. I mean, Mobius does stuff too, but it's mostly Loki, the Lokis who are popping off, and it's a really fun time. And then they do a little magical hand holding thing, which when people say sparks fly when you meet the love of your life or something. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, then we get back to the TVA and we see all the timelines disappearing off the screen, and I'll be honest, it falls a little bit flat. And that's why, like, one of the reasons this episode is an 8, not like something like a 9 or a 10, something like that, because it does feel flat. Because of course we understand that those timelines are filled with so many people, a bunch of people, right? Trillions upon trillions of people. And B15, Hunter B15, man, she's in this episode a lot, and it's really a shame that I don't know if I'm getting her name right. But yeah, and then she's like, oh, all those people, those are all lives that are just not lives anymore, and we're supposed to feel really bad about it, but as an audience member, we don't really feel that. We are told that it's like, oh, it sucks, all these people are dying, but because to us this all these other timelines are just a line on a screen, I feel like it didn't hit as hard as it should have. And which brings also there's a bunch of Ouroboros developments throughout this episode as well, where he's trying to stabilize the temporal loom, and it turns he's having a real rough time because the doors won't open, so he can't go out there and stabilize it with the device he made. And it turns out he needs a variant of He Who Remains to open it, and to do that, to get that, they need the help of Miss Minutes, and that's where the episode leaves off, of course. And then also Sylvie returns back to her branched timeline, which survived the bombing, the genocide. That's crazy, right? Because I think they call it a genocide at one point, or maybe I just read that on Twitter or someone referred to it as that. By the way, it's a big deal, and it's there's a really cool scene where the moment where Loki and Mobius step back into the TVA to see the aftermath, and then it just like lingers on the door with Sylvie still on the other side. It's like, is she gonna walk through? Is she gonna come in? And then she did, and it was a really cool moment, I thought. And yeah, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, all of this to say, all of the important stuff happened. We got all of the plot out of the way. You understand. It's really cool stuff. And then, um, what I wanted to say is that this episode, season two, episode two, echoes season one, episode two in a lot of ways, where essentially it's like this is the only episode, or look back to season one, episode two. That's the only episode of that season where really Loki's like doing actual TVA work, like crime scene investigation, bouncing around the timeline, checking places out, doing all that sort of fun stuff that the TVA is like traditionally meant to do. And it's also in that episode where he and Mobius eat lunch, or rather Loki ruins Mobius's lunch, and then they have the pie scene here, which is essentially that again. And then we're doing a bunch of like or a bunch of timeline, location hopping in this episode, like we did in the first in the season one's episode two. I feel like I'm overcomplicating how I'm talking about this, but they echo each other in a lot of ways. Where there's a lot of TVA work, a lot of bouncing around, and then it culminates in this big moment where in season one, episode two, it ended with Sylvie bombing the TVA, and here it ends with the TVA bombing the timelines, which is really cool. Like, wow, that's a really cool like inverse of that ending, which is really cool. I wonder if that was on purpose. But yeah, it echoes it in a lot of ways, which I thought was really cool. And I don't remember if I said it, but because I'll be honest, I started recording this and now I'm recording it again. Yeah, I said it. I said it in this episode where I talked about how it's a big piece of the multiverse saga and it still takes time to flesh out the characters in this show. And I can talk about that now after getting through the plot. Um, Yeah, Mobius, when he breaks down, has a little breakdown. We get to see him a little bit vulnerable for the first time, I feel. Of course, he talked about his jet ski a lot in season one, but here's the first time where he himself is like thinking about, well, what if he has a life on the timeline? Like Loki, because of course, X5, his whole thing is that he's like, the TVA isn't real. Okay, this is all make believe. I had a life on the timeline, the sacred timeline. Also, it's very important that it was on the sacred timeline because that one doesn't get bombed. That's why he was like, we got to get back to the sacred timeline. Please put me there. But yeah, where essentially he's telling Mobius and B15 that the TVA is just not real and it's a bunch of lies. We all have lives on the sacred timeline. Why don't we? Are we all should have lives on the sacred timeline? We should go back to them. That sort of thing. And he plants that little seed in Mobius's head about like what about your life? What about your life on a timeline? What was it? Could have been good. Could have been great. Could have been bad. And then that's when he snaps a little bit. He doesn't snap, okay? That's where he loses his cool in the interrogation scene. And then during the pie scene, Loki then, as a friend, asks him the same thing that essentially X5 was getting at. What don't you wonder? Aren't you curious about your life on the timeline? And then Mobius is like, hey, maybe it's great. Maybe it's bad. I could handle it if it's bad, but if it's great, then that's going to be in his head the whole time. Like, should he be on the TVA? That sort of thing. And I really like that in the show that is like the biggest piece of the multiverse saga so far. Yeah, probably because it definitely like directly deals with Kang in a lot of ways. Being the biggest piece because Ant-Man sure like did not do a good job of introducing Kang. So Loki is arguably the biggest piece of the multiverse saga so far, and it's great to see that despite being such a big universe, multiversal thing for the all of the MCU going forward, they're like, hey, let's take some time and let's just talk to Mobius. Let's hear what Mobius is thinking of in this moment in his life of the TVA and all that. If he has a life, that sort of thing, and I really like that. It's great. But yeah. Do I have anything else on my notes I need to get through? Because of course, for this show I do have notes because you know, I need something. I need something to help me along. I got through all of my notes. Well, a really good job from me. High five. Yeah. But yeah, like I said at the top, 8 out of 10 because of course coming off of hot off of episode 1 of the season being a phenomenal return to the show, where it really felt like they pulled out all the stops. It made sense for this one to like pump the brakes a little bit, just a little bit. And in doing so, we did get to spend more time with characters like Mobius and get to know a little bit more about him. We spent more time with Casey as well. He's a big fanboy of Ouroboros because he wrote the employee handbook, and because Casey's a side character employee, he isn't the main character, so he actually read the handbook and not like all of our other characters. So he was really like fanboying over that. It was really fun. It was a fun scene. But yeah. Oh, also there's like threads being opened about Renslayer and where she might be. People are starting to wonder. And yeah. Like I said, the episode 8 out of 10. I said that already. Really good stuff. And there are threads. Oh, like I said earlier, the episode essentially ends with Sylvie going back to her branch timeline, and the current plot line, the thread that we're going to follow, is that we need a variant of He Who Remains to open the what do you call it? The door. I guess it's a door. I don't have to find a fancy word for it. It's a door into the temporal loom so Ouroboros can, stabilize it and, so the TVA doesn't explode. Although we did see in episode 1 when Loki went to the future, the TVA was in disarray. So I don't think it's going to end well for their adventure into finding a variant of He Who Remains, which by all accounts seems to be Victor Timely, because we all saw Ant-Man, we all saw the post-credit scene, and of course we saw Victor Timely. Victor Timely? I'm not really good with names, as you may have noticed. I might be nailing all of these names, or I'm just second guessing myself, or I'm getting them all wrong. Who knows? But yeah, trailers show Victor Timely. Post-credit scene of Ant-Man showed Victor Timely. So we're going to see him soon. I thought we were going to see him this episode, honestly, because it looked like they were wearing the same things. Maybe they just go back to that same timeline. I mean, it's a sacred timeline. So maybe. Lots of questions that we'll get answers to in the next episode, I'm sure. And with that, of course, that's it. That's the episode. That's all I have to say about episode 2 of Loki season 2. And yeah, let me know what you thought of the episode so far. What do you think of the season so far? And also, just say anything in the comments below. Hit the like button also if you haven't. Hit the subscribe button if you've made it to this point and you haven't. Do that. Yeah. I obviously am going to post this every week because that's how this show works. It's a weekly show, so stay tuned. And in the meantime, watch out for my games content, where I will be. Oh my god, my chair is making me tiny. My chair falls. It sinks a lot on its own. Okay, I'm not that small. Anyways, keep an eye out for all of my games content. I just put out a Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 first impressions video. It is my first time ever playing Cyberpunk 2077, and I talk all about it for about 45 minutes. And be on the lookout for a video about Assassin's Creed Mirage, because I am doing one on that. So, stick around in the channel to watch all of that. We'll be back right here with more Talk About TV when Loki Season 2 Episode 3 drops next week. But until then, stay safe and watch some friggin' TV.